and
Right.
the other is like, I think when they raided Epstein's house, can't remember which house it was. I think it was the one. Didn't he have a house in Florida or something? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, the house in Florida where they raided it, and he's like shaking his hand, like they're kind of ending the audience or initially introducing each other.
Right. I think you're right. That is what it's referring to. But why is that? Why is it not possible that when he went to that audience, he stayed there?
Well, I don't think that there's any proof substantially of, based on the scrutiny that St. John Paul II's beatification was put under, and the fact that, there has been this kind of poise against him, especially in regards to, the sex abuse crisis or what have you, that from those crises, we would have seen something as like a link to Epstein or sort of some kind of collusion going on. None of that's come up. And I think this email too, like even if he was living kind of in the city of Rome, like, when I stayed there or whatever, like at an Airbnb or a hostel, I don't see any kind of collaboration having between the two. I think it's an argument from silence.
Right. Well, did you read the email? I'm not trying to be a dick. Did you read it?
Yeah, I read the email.
Okay. So it's not possible that they discussed architecture and John Paul wanting certain columns.
They could have discussed architecture during the audience. I don't deny that. But I think, again, what I've seen people do is try to overextend the story and say St. John Paul II was in on this like global pedophile cabal. That's the thing I'm criticizing. I have, if they talked about architecture when he like met with them or whatever, that could be perfectly possible. I just don't think that there's any connection that is invoking a deeper collusion going on.
Did you did you see the email where he explains to Larry Summers the inner workings of the Vatican Bank?
Yes, I did see that. And I don't deny for an instant, I made it clear during the space. I don't know if you heard it, but there's been corruption in the Vatican Bank for a long time. I've never once denied that. But I think with that corruption, as we know, there's been several popes that have tried to clear that up, tried to reform that and reform the Vatican Bank. And it's almost been operating like a separate entity in some ways with, I know even, I believe there was the mafia participating in kind of some of its dealings and what was going on with it.
Hmm. And the CIA.
Yes, and the CIA, of course.
Right. But it would seem like the knowledge of that inner working of the Vatican Bank being, so intimately connected with the Mossad, that might also have perhaps a relationship to John Paul's relationship with the Mossad. Are you familiar with that?
But I don't see the evidence for that and how that pertains to Epstein. Because, I mean,
Well,
considering
Epstein
too,
was obviously, hold on. So Epstein was obviously Mossad, right?
yes, of course.
Everybody agrees with that, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah, of course.
Right. So are you aware of the Vatican establishing relationships with the Mossad officially?
Criticism that he had of our entrance into the Iraq war. I think if there was a deeper connection there, you would have seen almost more of a philo-Semitic attitude of not criticizing when Israel was taking a very clear military action to try and dislodge one of its enemies from the Middle East. And St. John Paul II was one of the loudest voices protesting our 2003 entrance in that war.
Well, that's true that, and so Francis as well. But I
Of
mean,
course.
saying things against the U.S., encroachments into the Middle East really is nothing compared to what they said in regard to Judaism itself. I mean, you have Benedict saying that Judaism exists as a covenant on its own. Have you read his book, Many Religions, One Covenant?
Yes, I have. And in that same book, he talks about supersessionism. I have the direct quote from it as well.
Yeah, but he says that the Old Testament can be read legitimately in a rabbinic way. Do you agree with that?
In that book, what he's trying to establish is the idea of the perspective that Judaism is operating from in order to carry ecumenical dialogue and lead to the conversion of Jews. I mean, you got to keep in mind, right? I can't remember if this was before his papacy ended or right after it. He wrote an essay essentially talking again about supersessionism. It was called an anti-Semite for that.
Well, if, all that proves is that they say conflicting things. So, this is like when
I would
if I were
disagree. I would disagree with that because here's
so
the
they don't
thing:
so when
if
he's
he's promoting dispensationalism, why wouldn't he just keep a
I didn't
similar
say that.
line?
That's a straw man. When did I say that?
I'm not saying you said that. That's what I'm.
Well, then
That
that's
is
a
what I'm
straw man. No, but
stating.
why are
His
you
view would
interjecting?
be.
Just why are you bringing in dispensationalism? Don't
I'm
worry about it.
saying that would be his consistent line. I'm not strawmanning you, Jay. Very clear
Okay, so
difference here.
so again,
He would
I
be
didn't
holding a
argue anything.
consistent.
I
Okay, go
didn't
ahead.
bring up
Sorry.
dispensationalism. I said that he says that the Old Testament can legitimately be read apart from Christ in the rabbinical way. How is that promoting ecumenical dialogue and converting Jews when the Vatican has said multiple times, do not proselytize Jews?
What all the post Vatican II popes have said in regards to Jews and a non salvific covenant is exactly what Pope Innocent III said, which is they are a witness people, meaning they are a witness to what happens in, Revelation, right? The idea
Really?
that all the Jews will convert, all the Jews will accept Christ at the end of time, and that their existence in
So
terms
what
of
does
not
not
being, well,
proselytizing mean? What
hold
does
on,
not
hold
proselytizing
on,
mean?
hold on. You got on to me about
What
interrupting.
does
Don't
not
interrupt me as well.
proselytizing
Hold
mean?
on, Jay.
So
You
you're
got
not
on to
gonna.
me about not interrupting. I'm finishing, okay? We gotta have a two-way street here. I'll respect your time, you gotta respect mine. What that's saying is that there is still missions to the Jews supported, right? It's even been, I think one of the societies that's come up recently has been like the St. James Society of Hebrew Catholics within Israel. And that is a society that has papal approval and has a mission to the Jews, right? It's
Have
even
you read
gotten
Covenant and
Cardinal
Mission?
Pizzaballa's signature and stuff like that.
Have you read
Hasn't been
Covenant and Mission?
condemned.
Have you read Covenant and Mission?
Covenant and mission by, yes, the document that refers to the whole proselytism line. In that
Yes.
line, in that same document, they say that Judaism and Catholicism cannot be presented as two different ways of salvation. And so
Yeah. All
what
again.
it's
So what?
referring, right? What it's referring to is again what I said before. They're a witness people, right? A witness to what's
Who
going to
should not be
happen when Christ
proselytized?
comes
Who
again.
should not be
But it's
proselytized?
not going to be the situation where you can't evangelize Jews.
But it says to not proselytize. So that's a
Again,
contradiction.
the CDF makes a distinction between evangelism and proselytism. Proselytism, as the CDF states, is converting people through false or unjust means. It's like if I threaten them, or let's say if I was offering like,
Okay. How about
bread to
Francis?
the poor,
Francis
like a
says
red. Well,
evangelize.
hold on,
Okay.
dude,
Francis uses
hold on,
evangelize.
hold on. You're interrupting again. I gotta finish.
This
Right?
is casuistry.
Here's the thing, if I was offering like bread to a poor country, like I'm in Nepal and there's a bunch of Buddhists, and I'm like, okay, you can only eat this if you convert to Catholicism, that's proselytism. But if I'm legitimately evangelizing someone
That's not.
and
That's
I
not how it
want
works,
them to
dude.
embrace the
Historically,
truth, that's evangelism. And the
yeah,
popes have not
that's a
condemned that.
casuistry. That's a way to redefine
It's
the
not
word.
at all. The
Yeah.
same CDF document that I posted about
No, I'm saying
before
in the history of the
makes that
church,
distinction.
proselytism means evangelization. So this
That's
is a way.
fine that you say that. That's not the definition that the
No, it
church
is
lays down.
because when you
That's
read
not the
when you
definition that the
read
church lays down.
well, you can redefine the terms all the time to make it work, just like Nostra Aetate
What
does when it
what
says that
redefining of
Hindus
terms, dude? This is what the church says.
Do Hindus worship and
This
love the
is
same
what
God?
the church says, my guy.
No, your church redefines and
Oh
contradicts.
my gosh, dude.
Did the Italian bishops just allow open
So
gays?
when you're
Did the
all your
Italian bishops
patriarchs,
just allow
when all
open
your
gays to be preached?
patriarchs, I've gotten onto
So
this
now it's a
with you guys
whataboutism,
before.
right?
When
Tu
all your
quoque.
patriarchs say Muslims and
Tu
Christians worship the
quoque.
same God, when
It's not all
all
the
your
patriarchs.
patriarchs, all
Not
your
all the
patriarchs say
patriarchs.
Muslims and Christians
Not all of them.
worship the same God, right?
It's not all of them.
I
Dude,
can literally find a statement from
Pius the
all your
Fifth.
patriarchs,
Pius
bro.
the Fifth says that
Patriarch
gay priests
Kirill,
are to be put to
Patriarch
death.
Bartholomew, every single one.
So it's
And
not all the
here,
patriarchs. You're lying.
Jay, I'll give you this. When they say that, I understand what they're saying. They're not denying the uniqueness of Jesus Christ, but you say that's heretical. So are all your patriarchs heretical?
It's not all the patriarchs, and yes, several
Dude,
patriarchs can make heterodox
on
statements.
on
That doesn't defeat
stream,
my ecclesiology.
you said your ecclesiology is that one bishop throughout the entire world could still be Orthodox and your church would exist. So are you
Sure.
claiming that there's some like mystical trad Orthodox bishop out there that
No, that's
happens
again
to
a
be like
straw
an old
man. So you're going to
calendarist
lie. I
and
didn't
he's
say that
not an
was the case.
ecumenist
I
and
said
he's
it
not
could
saying
be.
Muslims and
I
Christians
said it
worship the
could
same
be the
God?
case. I didn't say it was the case. By the way, Pius V says that gay priests are to be put to death, and the Vatican bishops in Italy just said that gay priests can be gay, openly gay people can become priests. Is that a contradiction?
Actually, Pope Francis said that gay priests should not enter the clergy
No,
as
it
as
just happened
recently
last
as like
week.
last or
Last
not
week
last
they
year, two
allowed it.
years ago, right?
Last week
So,
Leo allowed it. Is
dude,
that a
oh
contradiction?
my goodness, Pope Leo has
Is it?
spoken against gender ideology, spoken against
They just
homosexuality.
allowed it
Dude,
last week. It's
this
all over the
headline
news.
clipping belongs to
No, it's
TMZ,
not.
bro.
The
This belongs to
The
TMZ. Are
Vatican
you kidding
approved the
me?
Italian bishop's
I'm not going to believe
decision.
anything you say, Jay. You do this all the
So that's
time,
what. So you
bro.
can't answer.
So
Is
what
it a
you say,
contradiction?
what you
So you
go is you
know it's a
say, "Oh, okay,
contradiction.
these gay bishops are
The
allowed, or these
Italian
gay priests are
bishops
allowed."
allowed it, and
The
Leo
Italian
agreed.
bishops conference, dude. Okay, let me say for
Leo
a moment. Let
affirmed
me
that you
say
can
you're
be a
not
gay
lying.
priest
Let me
now.
grant for a moment that you're not
Did he?
lying, which you most certainly are.
Oh,
Even if I
wait a
was
minute.
to
How am I most
grant,
certainly lying if you don't
even
know?
if I was to
How am I
grant,
lying if you don't
even
know?
if I was to grant
So you don't. So
that a
you're lying.
bishop's conference said something
Leo
cringe,
approved
how
it.
does
Is
that
it a
disprove the
contradiction?
church? How does that disprove the church?
Because it's
The
previously
consistent
Pius V
line,
said it's a death penalty.
the consistent line
Pius V
from
said that
popes
gay priests
have
get the death
always
penalty,
been
and now
gay
you can be an
clergy
open
should
gay
not
priest.
enter into or gay people shouldn't
You just
enter into the
got wrecked,
clergy.
and you
That's
can't. You're
been, oh my
coping.
goodness,
You
dude,
got
get
wrecked.
wrecked. Are we in 2013, bro? Is this 2013?
This is all you have. Is
Is
it
this
2013?
2013,
This is
Jay?
last week,
Bro,
and you didn't even know it.
Unk, get wrecked. Dude,
That's all
take
you
that
have.
back
Is
to
this is why you
iDubbbz.
melted down about
Bro, take that
epistemology.
back to iDubbbz. Who's mad? You're
That's
mad,
all you
bro.
got. That's all
You're
you got to ad hominem.
spiraling. You're spiraling, dude.
I'm
Here's the
spiraling when
thing.
you just got wrecked.
Here's the
Pius V
thing.
says it's a death
If you were
penalty for gay
kinder and you
priests.
could have a
Pius V
conversation about
says a
truth,
death
this
penalty for
would
gay
be
priests.
so much more
Leo
fruitful.
last week
But
said you can be an
instead,
open gay priest now.
instead, you have to engage in this
That's all you
headline
got.
clipping. The CIA. Do you know about the same book that you recommend on your show about John Courtney Murray and the CIA? That same author, I think it's like Steve Weidenkampf or whatever. I'll have to go back. Literally says that John Courtney Murray lost. These guys have no arguments, dude. All they do is reference sources that they can't back up. He's like, yeah, the Italian Bishops' Conference last week said X or Y. Dude, I'm not gonna believe you for an instant, bro. You lie all the time. You've gotten caught with your pants down multiple times. I'm not gonna believe that bullshit, bro. Let's let up stateless. I wanna talk to my boy. Dude, what's up, buddy?
What's up? I just wanted to say Jay Dyer reminds me of Dean Withers with a deeper voice
I
and
would so
Orthodox.
agree. Dude, I would so
Just think
agree.
about it.
Yeah. Well, like he's like getting mad at the end. I'm like, bro, I'm just trying to have a conversation with you. Like, I'm not even trying to dog on you.
Just like Gish galloping, straw mans, throw 1,000 things at you and then say he owns you. Like, bro,
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I don't know. He's one of those people that like really has a problem with just like not crashing out. Like just not remaining calm at all.
yeah,
He always has to do this thing where he like talks over people, and it's why I had to talk to him like he was 5. I'm like, dude, mellow out, chill out, let's have a conversation, not talk over one another, right?
yeah.
It's just that simple. Dude, I'm willing to sit down and talk with anybody. I was willing to sit down and talk with him. He's always beating his chest about, oh, Catholics aren't willing to have a conversation or whatever. Bro, I just talked to you. Like, what are you talking about? But again, he has to engage in all these like theatrics, and you just got wrecked, bro. This isn't 2013, Unk. Okay? Take that, dude, take that back to like, I don't know, freaking like iDubbbz videos or something like that. You know, take that back to iDubbbz. That's not it. That's not it at all. So I don't know, man. I wish the best for
Honestly, it's
him.
Goyim behavior.
It is. Well, it's like goyim that get pressed by being insecure in their own religion. I mean, I see Cleve right now in the space. Cleve is notorious for this. I've literally had to multiple times say, dude, why do you have to engage in these like slanderous attacks on the church? Why can't it just be a conversation about truth? But the reason they do this is because they don't have truth on their side. If they did have truth on their side, they wouldn't need to slander us for an instant. We would just have a conversation about the filioque, the papacy, church history, unleavened versus leavened bread, right? We could sit down and have that conversation. But instead, it's like all these guys who just want to crash out and lose their minds.
100%. 100%. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
No, God bless you, bro. It's great talking to you. Oh, let's see here. Okay, I know Joseph wanted to come up, and then Tallahassee Patriots. I know he probably wants to argue, so he can come up. Oh, and then my boy Michael Corleone. Let's go. Joseph, what's up, buddy?
Hey, how are things,
Pretty good.
guys? That
Yeah,
was pretty intense.
yeah, dude. Well,
Um,
honestly, it was chilling. We're having a conversation, you know?
Mm. Yeah, well, that's why I try and avoid theology and the changing nature of theology,
Mm.
or changing interpretation, rather. But I just wanted to come in, and I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I wanted to come in about, I think, a point that I think this is more with regard to 20th century history and John Paul II as an historic figure.
Mm.
Now, a lot of people forget that John Paul II was a key figure, an instrumental figure in prying Poland out of the communist control, Soviet controlled communist bloc in Eastern Europe. Brezhnev in the early 1980s, possibly 81, 82, remarked that if we lose Poland, basically the whole thing is going to collapse like a deck of cards. I'm paraphrasing, not quoting directly, but essentially Brezhnev says very clearly, we lose Poland, it's all done. So Poland was considered to be strategically absolutely vital to essentially the communists and the Soviets ultimately winning the Cold War or trying to prevail in their struggle against the West. And it was a very close run thing. And John Paul II's interventions with regard to Poland, and ultimately him being the public facing, in addition to being head of the Roman Catholic Church, being the public facing figure on a world stage for Poland, while, but it was a dual act basically. He was trying to be a religious leader while at the same time signifying his solidarity with the plight of the Polish state. Um, this is something that a lot of people forget in the modern age, just how dangerous a figure he was, particularly dangerous to the left. With regard to Epstein, I don't want to comment too much about it, except to say that, as many people know, John Paul II, his other great legacy was to establish open dialogue with the Jewish community worldwide, and obviously had very close ties with Israel. I don't know about Mossad, but he was obviously he was considered to be a very important figure by the state of Israel and its political leadership, particularly Shimon Peres, who had regular interaction with the Vatican, particularly regard to the Middle East peace process. And again, we need to remember those times. Yitzhak Rabin was making massive compromises in order to make accommodations with the Palestinian leadership led by Arafat,
Mm.
in order to bring an end to the violence in the Middle East. And these times, even though things were tense and contentious, like there were suicide bombings going on, there was an unending wave of bloodshed. That we thought we'd never see in our lifetime, but have seen recently in the Middle East with Gaza. But at the time in the 1990s, there was this surge of hope and optimism. And the legacy of the Second World War, and I'm a Second World War expert here in the UK, one of the things that John Paul II very much wanted to do is he wanted to bring Israel in some ways out of the cold. He wanted them to be shown in a very good light and being productive partners within a real constructive peace process. And in addition, also, he wanted to completely change the Catholic Church's relationship with the Jewish people and people of the Jewish faith. And he had a very important motive for that. And that motive was the loss of his friends in the Second World War. During his time as a university student in Krakow, half his friends were Jewish and half his friends were Polish Catholic. Only two, I think there was a group of about 14 of them, and only two members of that group ultimately survived the war. One of them was Polish Catholic, I think his former fiance, and the other was a Jewish officer in the Polish army who miraculously managed to survive the war and who ended up later living in the state of Israel. Now, so this is, we're talking about an individual who is an eyewitness to mass slaughter, to the mass slaughter of his own people, Polish Catholics, as well as Polish Jews, and who witnesses, what Henry Kissinger would have called the breakdown of world order within his lifetime, falling very heavily upon his home country. And so he was a person who felt a deep level of moral responsibility to construct peace and to do whatever he could within his own lifetime to make sure that nothing like that would ever occur again. And he was surrounded by enemies during his papacy. Absolutely surrounded. Are you familiar with Malachi Martin?
I am, yes. I've
Yeah.
actually done studies on a lot of his claims and stuff like that. He's a figure based on his life and the life that he, lived or what have you, his relationship with like sedevacantist groups and his kind of penchant to, cobble up stories. I don't really see him as a credible figure when it comes to a lot of this stuff, considering that
Mm-hmm.
he was a very philo-Semitic figure during the second